It's Wednesday, the 13th of November 2024. Welcome to the Fast Five by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Adam Lang, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Adam.
Sean, story number 1 this morning. The federal government has pledged $80 million to keep Rex flying regional routes, as new figures show domestic airfares have risen sharply since Regional Express stopped flying major city routes.
Yes, Regional Express will get $80 million. Workers will get paid. Flights will keep going until June next year, which is important because that's after the next federal election. The federal government continues to guarantee seats for passengers who purchase tickets with Rex. Bit of a sore point for the feds on this one. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has been criticised for being way too close to the former boss of Qantas, Alan Joyce. All this comes as the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission puts out its latest report on the airline industry. It shows that since the end of July, prices on big city routes are up more than 13%. 13% in 3 months. Even though fuel costs are 40% lower than a year ago. Fuel costs are about 20% of the full cost for an airline. The report says domestic airline passengers face less choice and higher airfares because of the demise of Rex services between metropolitan cities. September is a busy time because of sporting events, but the watchdog said most of the fare hikes reflected lesser competition. Adelaide to Melbourne, for example, was up 95%. Melbourne and the Gold Coast, 70%. Canberra to Melbourne, 54%. In terms of cancellation stats, got as high as 3% in July, back to 2%. Good news, on-time arrivals are about 75.5%. The ACCC warned that it may be some time before another airline emerges on busy city routes. Read between the lines, and that suggests that we're still going to have high domestic airfares for a while.
Sean, the ACCC report is part of the government's push to better monitor what's going on. A little surprising yesterday was the response back from Qantas.
Yeah, they came out finding. They said the data doesn't really reflect average airfares being paid. It's a snapshot of lowest fares available in a particular 3 weeks. Now, this 3 weeks was up until October 31. It's when Melbourne hosted Coldplay. Everyone had snapped up the cheap fares, and so there were only expensive fares available. Qantas said that the airfare prices have increased over the past 12 months, broadly in line with inflation.
Sean, story number 2. Australians are feeling just a little bit more upbeat, with consumer sentiment hitting its highest level since the Reserve Bank started hiking interest rates.
The Westpac Melbourne Institute Consumer Sentiment Survey basically said that people are less worried about rate rises now. The outlook for income is pretty good on the back of the labour market. The index is up to 84.6. Still negative territory, still more pessimist than optimist, but it's up about 21% from its low point in late 2022. Good sign for retailers with Christmas coming up. Wasn't perfect. Time to buy a household good. That's one of those measures that economists really like. That is still pretty weak. But if you look at the economic outlook, family finances, stuff like that, it's looking pretty good. Just quickly, businesses also are more upbeat. The National Australia Bank Business Survey came out yesterday. It says business conditions pushed up a touch, but confidence readings jumped sharply. Inflation measures are also showing containment in price rises. Employment reading in the survey is weakening somewhat. You'd expect that. Bottom line, consumers and businesses are more confident.
Sean, story number 3. United States President-elect Donald Trump last week told Prime Minister Anthony Albanese that Australia and the US would enjoy a perfect relationship.
Yeah, so Mr. Albanese has never met Mr. Trump. The opposition is calling on Mr. Albanese to head to the US to make sure tariffs aren't imposed on Aussie exports. Easier said than done. In response to Anthony Albanese yesterday, and I quote, he described the relationship we would have as a perfect friendship. And I'm very confident the relationship between Australia and the United States will continue to be very strong. Albo flies to Peru today for the APEC summit and then to Brazil for the G20 conference.
Sean, story number 4. Coles held its annual general meeting yesterday, and Chair James Graham said it is disappointing to see cost of living issues being politicised.
What does he expect, really? He said Coles is sensitive to the economic health of households. He highlighted how closely supermarkets and the governments worked together during COVID and bushfires and flood periods. Now, of course, the ACCC is taking Coles and Woolies to court, alleging them of sham discounts. Mr. Graham said Coles was committed to ensuring it does the right thing. In fact, he said a basket of goods in Australia over the last 5 years is up about 24%. That's below New Zealand, below Canada, the UK and the US. And in fact, it's below the OECD average, which is 39%.
Sean, story number 5. How far can Bitcoin run? So far, it's gone through US 78,000, 82,000 and 86,000 a unit. And now it's within reach of US $90,000 a unit.
Since last week's election, Bitcoin is up 30%. 8%. US selection I'm talking here. The cryptocurrency's market capitalization, the value of Bitcoin out there, is over $3 trillion US. Yesterday morning, it jumped 10% to a fresh high of just under 90,000 US dollars a unit, with ETF investing leading the way. Bitcoin has more than doubled in 2024. Pundits now reckon 100,000 US dollars a unit is within reach. What a turnaround. It's all about Donald Trump winning and the Congress, which is the Senate and the House, being full of pro-crypto politicians.
That's it. The top 5 business stories in just 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Adam.
It's Wednesday, the 13th of November, 2024. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if 5 minutes is not enough, then find our longer podcast called Fear and Greed on your favourite podcast platform. I'm Adam Lang, and that was the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.